It being 6 o'clock, I'm going to call this November 29th, 2021 meeting of the Chelmsford Selectboard to order. And would you please join me with the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you're in the Zoom room and you're not speaking, could you please mute yourself? Thank you. Okay, we'll start with our public service announcements. The first one, oops.
Want me to just start?
Yep, the first is the 255 Princeton Street, but I don't see a handout for that.
There isn't a handout, so I was just pulling up the agenda for tomorrow night, but basically, it's an invitation for the public to attend a presentation by the developers for the 255 Princeton Street proposed redevelopment. It's a public meeting to be held at the Chelmsford High School PAC Center at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. So anybody interested in what's going on with the development of 255 Princeton Street, we urge you to go and see the plans for the developer there and what they are laying out for that property.
Okay, the next one is the COVID booster clinic.
So we have an announcement for a COVID booster clinic, December 2nd, 2021, 2:30 to 6:30 p.m. This will take place in the town office gymnasium down on the first floor. We currently only have Moderna. Registration is required. Please pre-register. You can go to the town website, chelmsfordma.gov, and click on the link there to register for this clinic. Masks are required. The clinic is open to those who are 18 years or older. Please bring your insurance card and your COVID vaccination card. Be sure to wear a short-sleeved shirt. And again, this is for the Moderna COVID booster.
Next, we have the holiday Prelude.
Just want to make sure she's on here. Vivian.
I don't see anybody.
All right, so the Holiday Decorating Committee is inviting all to the tree lighting this Sunday, December 5th, 2021. Chelmsford celebrates the holidays. Mark your calendar for this Sunday night, the first Sunday in December. Start off the holiday season by meeting and greeting your neighbors at the Chelmsford Annual Holiday Prelude. The Holiday Prelude will take place throughout the town center and common from 4 to 6 p.m. this Sunday, with the tree lighting at 5 p.m. This year's Prelude will include horse-drawn hay rides for the entire family, free goodies, face painting, and music and dancing performed by various groups scattered throughout the center and the common. There will be so much to see: sparkling lights, happy faces, and of course Santa. And the gingerbread house competition's back. So please join us and help spread the holiday spirit. Admission to most events is free to the public, but donations are always greatly accepted.
Okay, thank you, Ken.
Do
That
we-
brings us,
Do we want to mention the fire?
Go
North
ahead.
Fire- Yeah, this is last minute, but the North Fire Station open house will be taking place this Friday from 9:30 to 12:30, and then Saturday from 11 till 3 up on Princeton Street. So again, the public's welcome to come in and see the improvements that have been made to the facility. So we welcome everybody to attend that time.
And with that, I mean, we don't have an announcement for it on the agenda, but Saturday night is the North Chelmsford tree lighting, correct?
Yes,
So-
4 o'clock.
At 4 o'clock.
Yep.
So we don't want to leave that out. So 4
Right.
o'clock Saturday night, you can go to the fire station and walk through there, take a little break, find somewhere to grab something to eat, and then pop over to the tree lighting in North Chelmsford at 4 o'clock?
Yep, 4 o'clock.
Yep. So
okay, thank you.
it's a long weekend if you do both, do all that, yeah.
Next is our public input segment. Do we have anyone who would like to speak during public input? Okay, seeing none, I'll move on to committee vacancies. Ken?
So for the week of November 29, 2021, we have the following vacancies available. The Arts and Technology Education Fund Committee has one 3-year term. Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee has one unexpired 3-year term and one 3-year term. The CCA has 2 one-year terms. Center Village Master Plan Implementation Committee is looking to fill 1 seat to a 1-year term. Commissions on Disabilities has 1 unexpired 3-year term available. Community Action Program Committee has 3 one-year terms. Council on Aging has 1 unexpired 3-year term, 1 3-year term, and 5 associate member positions staggered on 3-year terms, ending each June 30th, 22, 23, and 24. Cultural Council has 2 3-year terms. The Holiday Decorating Committee has 1 1-year term. The Parade Committee accepts all applicants' 1-year terms, and those expire each July 31st. Public Celebrations Committee has 5 open seats, 1-year terms. Tree Committee has 1 unexpired 3-year term and 1 3-year term. If you're interested in serving on any of these town boards or committees, please complete an online application available at the town website. For more information, you can contact the town manager's office here at 50 Billerica Road, or you can email tmoffice@chelmsfordma.gov, or call the town manager's office at 978-250-5202.
Thank you. And do we have someone here from the Cultural Council? You can come up to the podium.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Barbara Riley, and I'm currently the chairperson of the Chelmsford Cultural Council. We have about 7 members, but we need more. Any more would be great. Our purpose right now is the state allots a certain amount of money to each cultural council in Massachusetts, and that money is to go towards people that apply for grants to perform or display anything in the arts. At the present time, we have, I think, 28 applicants. We're meeting tomorrow night to allot the amounts of money to each applicant or decline if we don't think they're appropriate. Generally, we usually give everybody something. Our applicants come from the Merrimack Valley. A lot of them perform here in town at the CCA or the library or on the Common. We have about 7 members. Tomorrow night, Wednesday night, we'll be meeting to, as a committee, to allot the amount of money. It's a fun committee. I mean, we get along well and we have a lot of fun, and this is a rough time of year for us because everything comes at once. We also, after the voting meeting this week, we go on to running the photo contest, which is held at the library in the conference room there where the displays are. And we give prizes to each different category. It's professional and as well as amateurs, and students as well as adults. Basically, that's what we do. And I was on it for 6 years and came off it for 1 year, and then they desperately needed people, so I got elected chairperson, which wasn't my idea. But anyway, we're managing. We're doing well. So we'd love to have some more people join us. That's it. Any questions?
How often do you meet?
Oh, that's right. Once a month, usually the second Wednesday of the month, because I play with the community band, and a lot of us have Tuesday night things. So Wednesday was the best night for everybody. And it usually runs from 7 to about 9. And we meet at the CCA in the cafe. Anybody else?
Any other questions?
That's great.
Oh, and a little side thing, the Chelmsford Community Band, which I'm speaking for, even though I'm not on the program to do that, has our annual winter concert on the 12th at McCarthy. So encourage your friends to come. It's at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Had to get that in there.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to item number 5, which is the public hearing for Aggregate storage license.
So I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing for Aggregate storage license located at 16 Oak Street to be continued to December 6, 2021.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Okay, next is the continuation of the tax classification hearing. Before we reopen it for public input, Frank, do you have any updates? And Sam?
I have no remarks. If there are any questions, certainly can field them at this point.
Do you want to do questions now or after public input? Does anybody have any questions? I have a few. Do we usually take public input first?
I think so.
Yeah, so we're going to take the public input first,
Certainly.
Frank, and then we'll come back to questions. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak? Okay, seeing none. Do we want to close the hearing?
Sure. I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second motion.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Okay. I just had a couple of clarification questions from last time, Frank. So could you remind me how many properties do we have that are considered commercial? And of those, how many are CIP?
Certainly. Commercial industrial properties, we have 658. Roughly half of that would be commercial. We have, for those that qualify for the small commercial, there are 244. That's for fiscal '22. Just a little historical, last year there was 243 commercial properties that qualified. Prior to that, 180. In the first year was implemented or adopted was 169. So you can see the number has grown from 170 roughly to 144 proposed for this year.
What drove that?
I think greater awareness. I think we made some effort in trying to get the word out there, some work with the CBA. I think it's greater awareness.
So that's the number that have applied, not necessarily the number that qualify.
Actually, we've gone through prior to these meetings, we go through them all. So the 244 is currently who qualifies. There can be applications, just like any exemption, that'll follow. We go through it, and yes, so that number could grow. Right now, there's
That's who
244.
qualified, not who's eligible.
Right now, we have 244 that are eligible that we're aware of from
Qualifies,
prior
right.
year.
No, what I'm saying,
From,
though.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
From prior year's information, and also information furnished to us from the Department of Unemployment Assistance. They furnish us annually each June or July with a listing of businesses that they're aware of that have 10 or fewer employees. So that's our starting point. From there, we then cross-reference that with the building itself. Is it less than $1 million? If it's 10 or fewer employees, but it's over $1 million, obviously they're disqualified. When we find a building that's multi-tenanted and some of the businesses are fewer than 10 employees, given that list, we do a little more due diligence and see if the rest of the building, the rest of the tenants would also qualify. So that's sort of the beginning of it that gets us to this point here. Other businesses that we're aware of and buildings that we're aware of that will qualify. Now following this will be applications that are those that are not on the list that feel they would qualify can certainly apply, and we take a look at that.
So you're proactive on it. You go out and find the businesses that qualify, let them, they don't have to apply, I guess is my point.
They don't have to. If we become aware of it some other way, some towns that have adopted this only go by an application process on an annual basis. We don't take that position. If we're aware of it,
That's what I was getting at.
Oh, so you give them that break whether they ask for it or not, is that what you're saying?
if we come, because we get the list from the Department of Unemployment Assistance, which has been made clear by the DOR that has an absolute list, and we have to adhere to that. So with that information.
Does anybody have a question? I have another.
You said it was 243 last year, 244 this year?
That's right.
What was the 170?
170 was from, when the first year was enacted, which was
Okay.
fiscal 19. Yep.
Thank you. So my other question was on slide 6. At the lower right here, it shows that doing nothing, their average residential tax bill will increase by about $400 this
That's
year.
correct. If the board should retain the 122 split, yes, it would go up $419.
And what is if it retains the 1.22 split, what is the corollary for the commercial?
That would go up roughly 2.5% in valuation, or $650, almost $700. The commercial industrial did not increase dramatically from 21 to 20. The residential did.
The
So we have that kind
the
of
property value?
That's correct. So we have that kind of natural shift. Since it's a zero-sum game, it's a natural shift away from the commercial to the residential. The residential went up 6 to 8%, condos as well, about 5%, outpacing the commercial industrial, particularly the commercial.
Does anybody have any other questions for Frank at this point?
So you're saying, Frank, if you went down, say, 120 to 1, right? What would the residential rate be then? Or the amount covered for something?
The tax rate would, if we
That's
went
like
from the,
12.
Is that what you
to a
just said,
single tax rate, a
700?
uniform tax rate?
No. If you went from, if you went to
122 to
120 to, instead of 122 or whatever, you know?
It should be on chart right here.
12.
Okay. So I thought
Yep,
you
it's
just
there.
stated it as
Well,
well.
we can answer the question now.
So the average,
That helps you.
But you just mentioned
Yep.
400 against 700.
120, so the it
nobody
would be
can read
roughly
this.
a 4% increase on the residential as opposed to the 5. It would, tax rate would go to about 1584, I think it is, from 50, so it'd be relatively modest change.
On the average, it goes up about $33.
So can you just say that again? So at 1.22, the average residential goes up $419, which is what percentage?
5 point, I think it's 5.4.
Okay, and George's question was, at 1.20, the average residential goes up,
Is that another $53?
Yeah,
5.65, Frank.
right, 5.65.
5.65 is the difference at the 419.
and then what is the commercial? That was at 2.5?
Right, 122, right.
Sorry, it's what?
Right, the 2 point.
Right, but at the 1.20, what's the CIP percentage?
Don't have what the increase would be for that in this particular chart.
47.
It's still probably down below 3, right?
Right.
Does that answer your question, George?
Yeah.
Any other questions?
644.
Any deliberation ready to start? My notes.
Frank, just a quick question. So in your, where it says percent change,
Yes.
is that relative to residential tax?
Are you on slide 12, Mark?
I am.
Yeah.
So what's that relative to, the percent change in that column?
Which column? I'm sorry.
The one that says percent change? It's kind of
Okay, yes.
after
That all,
the,
it continually compares it to a single tax rate. Continually shows what the comparison would be for a single tax rate versus the, whichever,
so it's 4.37 less than what it would be if we were at parity. Okay, thanks.
Okay, do we have any recommendations?
Well, I'd like to make my usual comments every year when it comes time for tax classification. I always stress how much the business community, local business community acts as a partner to this town, and I really appreciate what they do as far as, helping out the local sports teams, helping out with the parade and things like that. I really regret that we ever burdened them and treated them differently when we implemented tax classification several years ago. I feel like they already pay somewhat of a premium because their stormwater charges are much higher than a residential charge is. They usually have a higher sewer usage rate than residents do, and they pay personal property tax, which no resident does. So, I mean, obviously, I'm fairly certain that this board would not go back to a single tax rate, but I would encourage us to seriously consider reducing the disparity that we have now.
Anybody else?
I mean, I'll echo Pat's comments about their activity in the community, just in particular the park that was built right off of 495 when the business community was asked to help with the park. They stepped up and, it turned out to be a beautiful park there. So they don't shy away from, pulling their share.
Well, I can say I agree with all that, and, I personally feel it's unfortunate that we are where we are with this shift, and especially with the pandemic and so forth, and now with a 5.4% increase on residential, it makes it more difficult to roll it back, but I think we should take a shot at it, even if it's minor, even if it's small.
Well, I think when this was voted in, one of my comments was it might take 10 years to get it back to, if that's the goal. You can't do it. I can't stress it enough. I mean, I think the most important thing is some stability to the tax rate in the town, because you don't want to be swinging it one way and then swinging it back and having the residents trying to figure out what the heck's going on. I'm getting whiplash with my tax bills.
Yeah, I'd kind of like to see it become non-political, to where we're really taking a look at what it was meant for, which is when there are big swings in either direction with valuations and so forth. And if we could come up at some point downstream, we can't do it tonight, but downstream where it actually applies a formula to those kinds of shifts to give a recommendation to the board on what that would do in order to help to, kind of stabilize what those disparities in those shifts could be. So I'd rather see us more in that kind of a situation ultimately, rather than making it a political.
Well, that was the comment
Yeah.
when the class taxification study was released, was one of the approaches is to use it as a adjusting factor,
Right.
which is, again, probably where I'd
Yeah.
be more comfortable using it. So I agree with you.
George?
It's a tough year because you get 82% of the revenue comes in from the residents, and they're already paying $4.19, is it, for the average? What is it? Average, what is that? $400,000 house.
It's about
Process.
$496,000, the average assessed value.
So roughly $500,000, roughly, right? And then at the same time, it's been a tough year for businesses too, so it's tough. It's a big jump in taxes, so hopefully we can work something out that can be helpful to both sides a little bit, that's all.
Yeah, and I'm struggling with the escalation of the residential property tax values and the $400 hit that they're going to have. And I agree, I don't think we want to create a whiplash effect, which is why I've consistently said I think that to some extent you have to let it ride, or not vary it too much year to year. I like the idea of using it as a tool. I think one of the things that we brought it up either a year or two ago, but it really seems like what we need is a conscious strategy about what we're what is our tax classification strategy, and why do we use it? And I understand when the split went in, it was to help a certain segment of the resident population that was really struggling too, and I don't discount that. So I just don't want to see us make a decision that's going to create that whiplash effect. I don't think that's the right thing to do for anybody, the residents or the businesses.
No, I think what you're saying too goes back to what Ken said earlier, which it's gonna take some time to get it back to wherever it is we want it to land, and I think.
The issue is there's not a clear vision of where that is.
Exactly.
Well, and this board can't bind a future board either,
Correct.
so it's not something that you could, say, okay, we're gonna change it this much this year and this much
Well,
next
but
year, so-
you can have a discussion to say, here's
Sure,
a philosophy that
absolutely.
we would
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
to
right.
adopt, and
Right.
hopefully it
Yeah, and it could
stays
be,
adopted.
right, it could be more directional and guidance as
Right, I
opposed to an
understand,
absolute.
right, I understand guidance, but
Right.
yeah, we just can't bind a future board.
Understood. Was there something you wanted to say? Or,
I'm all set.
just shifting your weight, okay.
Sam, do you want to add anything?
Well, I think you've said it all, but I'll just make one comment, and that is, if you go back and you study the original tax classification legislation as it was proposed back in the late 1970s, you will find that one of the legislative intents was, in fact, to do what Selectman Kurata suggested. That was the impetus behind the tax classification, to give the municipalities a tool to manage the levy share in recognition of spikes in property valuations.
In your experience in the surrounding, you've got the surrounding communities comparison, and we always fall at the bottom of that, with or without, of the surrounding communities, we have the lowest split right now
We do.
for those who have a split.
We do, and these surrounding, I think
And-
some of
and-
the spreadsheets show that we do have the lowest one, yes.
And do you find, to Sam's point, do you find that those communities that have a split, are they adjusting it year to year?
Some do. One of the communities that I think is sensitive to what Selectboard Karada mentioned was Tewksbury.
Tewksbury.
Tewksbury does take a look at adjusting it to a certain percentage. Say their target is an 80-20 or whatever it would be. They continually adjust, but they are at a 154. But they do target a certain split.
Also, Maynard and Littleton. They're
Can you get to the mic, Sam?
I'm sorry, Sam Chase, Board of Assessors. There's just a very small number of communities that do this, and three of them happen to be right in our vicinity. So it's unusual. So for the past several years, the communities of Maynard, Littleton, and Tewksbury, to your point, they'll vary as much as 5 to 7 points one way or the other, to make that adjustment in recognition of spikes in property valuations.
So Sam, just to be clear, so take Chelmsford over the last year, we've had a spike in residential values while commercial values haven't spiked.
Right.
So how would you use this as a tool then? How would you adjust the factor?
Well, I think to the chairman's point, I think you would have to have some sort of a mindset or philosophy in place that you were going to actually follow a policy where you would look at that every year and do it. I can't tell you what to do as a board, obviously.
No, I'm not asking you to tell us what to do on board. What I'm saying is if the goal was to use this as a tool, as you use in your example, and to keep the rate in line with the spike in residential values today, would we be considering, if we had that policy sort of in place, would we be considering a shift higher to the residents or lower to the residents?
Well, I think it depends on where your shift is now, okay? And as Frank said, the communities that do this are already in the mid to high 50s on their split. Okay, so we're at a much lower rate. So I think you have to take it isn't just that one factor that you take into consideration. That is a factor And it may be part of a philosophy, but, there are other factors that you have to consider, in addition to just the valuation. So it's part of the overall thought process, not the only determining factor. I don't know if I've answered your.
No, you didn't.
No, I'm sorry, I'm not.
Mathematically, if a segment, if the commercial's increasing at a lower rate, you'd have to shift the burden towards the lower
To the
rising.
commercial.
Right.
Towards commercial, right. And if the residential were increasing at a lower rate, you'd have to shift it towards residential if you wanted to maintain an equilibrium, yeah.
And that was, so.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I think that was the question.
I don't
Yeah, that's my
remember-
point, too.
Yeah, so
is-
you'd have to shift, so what you'd be doing this year, if you wanted to maintain it to last year, is you'd be shifting more
To the
towards
commercial.
commercial.
Commercial,
Yeah.
right.
Which is
right.
not,
We'd be going the other way.
right.
Right.
Right,
So-
because right now it's.
And that was, excuse me,
Go ahead.
that was, one of you threw out 80/20, so that's an example of municipalities trying to say 80% of the levy is raised through residential and 20% through commercial, or the other way around.
Yeah,
And
that
so
would,
then
that would be like a philosophical goal,
Right.
you'd pick the split. And.
And what is our split now?
What's it, 80,
It's right there on the sheet.
82, 18.
Okay.
it's less than 80/20.
And what was it when we were just a 1.0? Was it about the same?
Similar,
Yeah, it was close.
within a point or two.
Yeah, it was close.
But I think what Sam was getting at is, you could have factors, like, for example, if they built a 400-unit development at the UMass West campus, and you're adding that to your valuation, that's going to skew your valuation independent of what's going on with property values, because you've added a significant
Yeah,
number to that property valuation.
It
I
isn't
think
just the appreciation of existing property values, as Mr. Cohen has said. Exactly. That is a factor that has to be considered.
Because apartments are considered residential, even though they're commercial, we think of it as a commercial activity.
And that's how you'd get the relief on the other side.
Exactly. So
Right.
that's why I'm saying you got to look into what's really going on inside the numbers in terms of how did
But I
this
think-
increase in value.
So correct me if I'm wrong, the last 3 years or so, our new growth numbers have been higher than average.
Right.
So that would be a factor.
To
Ken,
reduce
in-
it.
Right, exactly.
Residential, right.
That's kind of I was around when they did the tax report and studied it deeply, and I think the point of, you got 4 towns that do this and have done it with a history, and that's why they're at the 1.5, because as they've grown residentially, they've shifted more to the commercial.
I think and they also started at a higher rate when
True.
they initiated their shifts too, right.
But I think what we're looking at, you're right, they're more than just using it as a tool. You got to look
Right.
at what's going on in the town, what's going on in the community, what's going on with the projects, where our growth is coming from, and using that to figure this out. And we have had a lot of growth with the apartments that have come online. And that's why I was kind of surprised when we saw the number. By moving the shift 1%, it's $30 to the average resident. It's not huge, in my, $30 isn't huge in my opinion. But that's because we've had so much residential coming on. I mean, years ago, when we looked at this 4 years ago, I think it was $54 for a 1% shift.
That's exactly right.
So as more and more residents are coming online, this shift is becoming less and less of a shocker.
And people are upgrading their properties too.
Like
I mean,
crazy.
just building permit values has increased. So that, as I said, the new growth numbers have been more than the average increase over the last 3 or 4 years, for a variety of reasons.
Wait, I'll take it. Do we close the public hearing? Or we have-
We already closed it.
Oh, we did? Oh, okay.
Looking for a motion.
Wake up, Ken. So, take the temperatures. Anybody okay with the 2% reduction?
Yeah, 120, make it a 120 to, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, 33.
It would be a 0.8 factor, right? Is that where?
Well-
Is that how we would vote that?
No, it's in the table. It's .9603.
I can't read this.
Oh, here.
Even with my glasses on, I can't see
yeah.
it.
I can look at my computer.
0.9603, yeah.
The number for the motion.
0.96.
It's 2 above the green highlighted. And that would still leave us around 80/20 where we've been?
It wouldn't be much of a fluctuation, right? It'd still pass on some.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Right, it would still be roughly that 80/20. When referencing it for the
green
point of the
highlight.
vote, if you could just reference the residential factor as opposed to the 120 number.
That's what you handed me.
I apologize.
Like 120.
Right, and then,
Like that's what
but it's identified for the
Right.
purpose of the vote as the residential
we can do
factor.
it, yeah.
Is that,
Straw poll, you were okay with that?
Mhm.
I'm okay with that.
I'd like it a little bit more, but I'd go with that.
you want 1.9?
If nobody else is going to vote for it, no.
Excuse me.
1.2 is good. I think you've got consensus on that.
Okay. All right, so I'll make a motion that we adopt a residential factor of .9603.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
I'll make a motion that we do not adopt a residential exemption.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
I will make a motion that we adopt a small commercial exemption of 10%.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
And I'll make a motion that we do not adopt an open space discount.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
Thank you
Got what
very
you
much.
need? Thank you, Frank and
Thanks,
Sam.
Frank. Thanks, Sam.
Appreciate it. Okay. That takes us to licenses. Let me, before we break, do we want to put this on like a future agenda after the first of the year? Just to talk about philosophy?
You know, it's been talked about like every 2 or 3 years. I mean,
We've never
we can-
talked about philosophy since I've been here. It's, people
Well, the
come in and
text-
say reduce it by 5%, and other people say
Right.
split it
And we
more.
throw around the idea of using it as a tool to adjust with
But
the
we
study,
never
but
talk
there's.
about what
we
the
don't hear from
target
the-
is for the tool.
Right, and we don't hear from the assessor's office with any sort of growth updates or anything until they walk in. And so maybe, I mean,
Maybe Paul, it's an assessor's update, and we can talk
Well,
around
the problem
it.
is they don't get their new growth, they don't get their new growth certified and their valuation certified till a few weeks prior to the public hearing. So it's not as though that they're sitting on data for months. It's just how the process closes out in terms of the fiscal year.
so maybe next year when we get notice, or I'll make a note that when we get notice that they've been, and I'll check with them, that once they're certified, that we get some other stats, like if you want to hold the rate, same split, where do we have to be?
Yeah,
at?
maybe it's a question of like
Different information in the
putting more
report.
different content in this briefing.
How much residential growth was
But
there?
my
how much-
my comment wasn't about the data from the assessors. My comment was the conversation we keep having, that should we just put something on an agenda, or maybe it's like in the spring that says, what do we think our philosophy is?
I agree with you, and I think the spring would be better. Because I
Okay.
think January, we're gonna be tied up with a lot of
Yeah,
stuff.
we got a lot of other
I think
stuff
maybe
going on.
February, March might be a good time to do it. So at least we can start getting the framework together of
Just the
maybe what we should
philosophy,
start thinking about.
yeah, and the framework. So make a note of that.
And at least a minimum, well, I guess,
We can't deliberate it here. Just
right,
keep
but
that
but
in
if
mind.
if you came in with just the options laid out, here's what would keep the split at the same ratio. Here's what it would be. Here's how much new growth in residential, how much new growth in commercial, and a little bit more education in that area. But more importantly, that education should be for any new incoming select board members who haven't been through it, because
That's what,
that's
The
where the confusion
education
is.
I agree with. I think what we're talking about is, what are we educating to? Is it 70-30, 80-20? Like, we don't have the philosophy of what the tool is used for.
I just wonder if maybe that should be what gets negotiated out when you get.
Maybe.
All right.
All right, well, we can, all right, let's move on. Licenses. First up, we have the transfer for Veneto's Restaurant. Do we have anybody here?
Yes, how are you? This is Gary Ortiz from Goldtas Accounting.
I'm sorry,
I'm
sir.
here.
Sir, you're, could you say your first name? It's not coming up on the
I'm
screen.
sorry, Gary Ortiz.
Gary Ortiz?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm also here with Mr. Fernando Lopez, who is the new owner. or actually will be the new owner starting December 1st.
Okay. Are you able to turn your video on?
The volume,
No, your video.
I've been trying, but for some reason it doesn't. It doesn't show. I also sent a text message to my technical support, and he wasn't able to get into my computer.
Okay, no worries. Let's go ahead and move on.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Did you want to say a little bit about what you're trying to do?
Yes, actually, Mr. Lopez, he's buying the restaurant, Veneto restaurant, who has been in the town of Chelmsford since 2017. 17. So Mr. Kio is the owner of the building. He's having Kirolos. He's the owner of the building, but he's having some heart problem, and he need to solve. He has to get rid of the restaurant because of his health condition. So he get into with one of his employees, Mr. Lopez, and he's gonna pass the restaurant to him since he's been working with him for a little bit, and he knows the business as well as Mr. Kirolos. I think Mr. Lopez is going to be a good fit for the business. I've been having a few meetings with them together, trying to get everything in place on time. They also already took care of all the paperwork and things that need to be done in the restaurant in order to transfer everything. And I think it would be a good thing for the city instead of closing the business of the town, instead of closing the business that someone can take care, because definitely Mr. Kirolo won't be able to do it very soon.
Okay. Is the application for the entertainment license, that's new?
Yes. And he just added, just in case, because he has some future ideas, in case he decides to put the entertainment in the future, he just apply for it. It was easier to do it now than later.
What type?
Guitars?
Yeah,
looks like live and.
Does the live music component affect the capacity? I noticed it was a capacity of 28 that the Board of Health marked down to 24.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't think that it's going to affect the capacity. Well, it will affect the capacity of the client in case they have somebody there in live, because it's going to be 24 people total.
Right,
But
okay.
basically, he's not planning to do something in the near future. Like I said, he just has some idea and put some music here and there to see if that can attract the attraction of the customer. But what we've been talking with Mr. Kirolos and Mr. Lopez is the restaurant business is more now delivery than people go there and sit. He's telling me that daily he got probably 3 or 4 people who go sit there, and he got hundreds of deliveries a week into the pizzeria. So, but he's trying to get something, talk maybe to some company to see if one day or something like that they can do something in order to attract the clients to go to the restaurant and get more clients that way, But he doesn't have a plan yet, exactly what he's planning to do there. Well, of course, everything that he planned, it would be submitted to the town before he decide what it is.
You only have 24, capacity 24.
Any other questions?
Is that the old Balos? Is that the old Balos? No?
Venito's is in Vinyl Square.
Which,
Right across from 2 Kilos. It's been there for 10 years.
yeah, across the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is the old Palos then, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
No idea.
That's
Yeah.
a while ago then.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, very small.
Yeah. It's not going to be a big band.
No, no, it's probably one person with a guitar.
I mean, for entertainment license and that, I mean, I would think you'd have to come with a specific plan if you,
Yeah. Okay. If there's no more discussion, we'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the transfer of the common Vigilo license from Veneto's Restaurant to Lopez Investment Corp.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion?
does that include the entertainment as well?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there any limit to, we still gonna, the capacity's still limited
Till
to
24.
24?
Yeah.
Okay.
That includes workers and,
No,
And the-
no,
not the
no,
workers,
that's
just the band
That's-
done.
and the people at the
Public.
And the
tables.
patrons.
Yeah, and the patrons.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be 1 or 2 person with a guitar, things like that.
He has the number of instrument storage on the license limited to 3.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
And they don't have a beer license.
You okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you so much. I hope to see you all guys over there.
Keep up the good food.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to the annual license renewals. Paul, did you want to?
No, I mean, you've got the summary provided from you as listed. Christina's done an excellent job sort of noting, the changes such as what's been transferred, what's been amended. But, it's an exhaustive list.
So tonight, you need a vote on
The-
renewing the 2022
Yes.
alcohol licenses?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, alcohol, common vitular, auto dealer.
Can we do it as one swipe as presented?
Yeah, however you board's most comfortable.
I didn't really see anything on here that caught my eye.
I didn't see anything that I questioned. Does anybody else? Okay. Take a motion.
Yeah, hold on. Checking 2 more things. So I'll make a motion that we approve the annual renewal licenses as presented.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second for the 2022 license renewals. I don't see any discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Okay, that brings us to town manager reports.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few items to just formally notify the board. The first is the 54 Richardson Road, the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection has approved the immediate response action plan that was submitted by Weston and Sampson on behalf of the town on a letter dated November 10th. Following that, Weston and Sampson sent out the formal amendment to perform the installation of the PFAS remediation system on November 22nd, and that's now moving forward. And as you can see, the goal is to have this done by spring. So we just wanted to thank everybody involved in that process. As you know, it's been quite an effort, and I think everybody's just glad that we're moving forward and
Yeah. Well,
treating the
I have a
system.
couple of questions,
Sure.
just for clarification.
Mhm.
On the letter from the DEP,
Mhm.
it looks like paragraphs 2, 3, and 4 talk about potential sources.
Mhm.
So, without knowing whether they can clearly identify a source, what this is saying is implement the mitigation recommendation, and we'll keep monitoring the levels to see if there's still an unknown source there, or whether they
Exactly.
the levels decline.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they were, most recently, they took some the quarterly samples, and hopefully we'll have that data back at next meeting or two.
Yeah, that was actually my question.
Yeah, is where
We're gonna see that, because are they gonna wait until this is up and running, till they decide, are all the levels coming down, but the dog park isn't being
Right.
impacted? And if that's the case, then they're gonna consider that a second source.
Exactly.
And,
and ask for modification.
that's what
Exactly.
that's how I read it. Okay.
Yeah.
And then my second question was on the Weston and Sampson proposal. The last section is assumptions that include some assumptions about what the town is going to do. So we're okay with all the assumptions they've made?
Yes, the
Okay.
DPW will be helping out, with the marking of utilities and then providing an excavator and operator and so forth.
All right,
Again, this is for the installation of the system, but I just want the board and the community to be aware, there'll be other costs like this ongoing sampling and testing and that'll be taking place as well, so, and those costs are not insignificant either, so we'll be coming back, obviously, for funding for those in the months ahead as well. But this is to get that
To
system
get
under
it going.
construction, but there's still the ongoing operation, mitigation, and so forth.
okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
The next item is the MassWorks grant for Groton Road. The ceremony was held in this room, and now we can finally state publicly, since it's no longer embargoed, that the town received a grant in the amount of $680,000 from the MassWorks Infrastructure Program to support the water main upgrade on Groton Road. And again, we, as was noted in the ceremony, we actually did get some press coverage on this in the Lowell Sun. Just the partnership between all parties involved, from the property owner to the water district to the town and so forth. And it was great for the Secretary Keneally of Housing and Economic Development to come out to the community, and Representative Golden and so forth. So a great step forward, and we'll look for that work in the months ahead. And I understand they've already, pulling foundation permits for the construction of the housing that's supported by this grant. The next one is just a brief mention, since our last meeting, the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection has granted the town of Chelmsford a $30,000 Sustainable Materials Recovery Program grant for our recycling efforts.
So do we know what that'll do?
It just supports the ongoing operation
Oh,
of the
okay, nothing
program.
special.
There's nothing,
No
nothing
special
special with that.
program,
And then the final one is the state's contribution to the Community Preservation Fund. Just over a week or so ago, the Commonwealth distributed the Community Preservation Fund allocation at the end of the state's fiscal year. The town of Chelmsford received a match of $485,005, which is a matching percentage rate of just under 40%, 39.37% of the town's funding assessment for the current fiscal year. So that, again, puts more funds available for community preservation, whether it's open space, community housing, historic preservation, and so forth. So
Paul, do they match that dollar amount, and you figure out the 39.37, or is 39.37 the matching rate?
it's the matching state rate. In other words, they have
If we
a
had stuck
form-
in $2 million, we would have gotten,
Right, we would have, right, if we had collected more in property taxes, then our dollar amount would have gone up, but our percentage would remain constant. They actually have 3 funding rounds, and because Chelmsford's not a full 3% assessment community, we're only eligible for the first funding round, as is most of the communities in the Commonwealth. But if you hear that other communities received a higher percentage, it's because they went to the full 3% assessment, whereas we're at 1.5%. So that was good news, and again, the efforts move on. So that's my report for this evening. I do have one appointment. As was noted at the last meeting, Kristen Champagne had expressed interest in the fire station committee as well as other committees. I reached out to her, and she's interested in serving as a member of the recycling committee for a term that would expire at June 30th, 2022.
so I'll make a motion that we accept the town manager's appointment of Kristen Champagne to the recycling committee for a 1-year term.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you to Kristen.
Yeah, thank you, Kristen.
Another one off your list.
Okay, next we come to the review of the board's liquor and common vigilar license regulations. Pat, do you want to facilitate this?
Sure, thank you. Okay, so this is been a back and forth process. Christina Bruce and I met to kind of talk briefly about what needed to be done. She's, as you know, she works so closely with the licenses and everything that she's become quite an expert on that. One of the main things we decided to do was to separate, make different sections, so that the first section was just for CVLs, and then you would go on to the alcohol licenses, restaurant alcohol licenses, and then I remember how the rest of the sequence goes, but it was kind of all intermixed before. So, and there was a concern that if somebody had just a CVL, they might read like the first 6 sections, which might apply to CVL, and then section 7 might be, or paragraph 7 might be, have something having to do with just alcohol, and just say, okay, nothing else applies to me. So we wanted to make it clear which applied to just the CVL and which are more alcohol licenses. I mean, we can go through every change, or we can, we can hit on some that I do still have questions on. Most of it is just clarification.
So the yellow highlighted sections, is that where you had questions? And just so you know, Christina Bruce has joined the Zoom room.
Oh, okay, good.
We have
Glad
questions
to
for
hear
her.
that. Well, there's a few, one that, there's some of these that either Christina or I put in some changes, but we still had questions whether the whole board agreed with them. First one, I guess, is 1.04, where it has to do with prorating license fees. The suggestion was license fees for newly issued liquor licenses may be prorated by quarter-year increments. Do we want to do that for CVL too? I mean, CVL license is only $100, so that's why maybe it wasn't put in there. We thought that that's manageable by most. But in the interest of fairness, wanted to check and see.
How much are the liquor licenses?
It depends what kind of liquor license you have. It goes from, what, $1,500 to $2,500, I think. Is that about right?
Yeah, what happens
Christina
is
might
somebody
know.
grabs a license in November, and it's like, if we didn't prorate the fee, they're upset that I gotta pay the license, and then next month I'm paying the renewal.
Let them pay.
But but we haven't had that issue, like I said, as much with the common victor. It's $100. The transaction cost is how they treat it.
I mean, I don't think it should be prorated.
Are you okay with prorating it for liquor licenses? Or are you serious about what you said about make them pay?
You talking about a package store license when you say a liquor license?
Any liquor license?
Or on premises, George, a restaurant.
Yeah,
So-
restaurant or.
So, for example, if they open on Diambo's, the Oddfellows building next July, do we charge them a full year or we charge them a half year? That's the question. And the policy has been, we charge them the full year if they open it up July 1st, and then, and then the further you get into the year, obviously, the more sensitive the people get, based on start showing up in
Do
September,
our-
October.
How much of those fees, or what percentage cover like our costs? Does that change whether they open in July or January?
No.
or-
No, it's the same review. We have the police chief do the query check.
So is most of that fee revenue for the town?
Yes, yes.
And how's the fee set?
We said it.
We set it by, within the limits of statute.
So as part of this, is that something, if we wanted to prorate it, would that have any real bearing materially on the money that we'd be pulling in
I
every
mean,
year?
we did this last year before, but,
Yeah.
and we got a total dollar amount. It's
About 100,000.
yeah, you're not talking a ton of money, but
Well,
it's,
and especially if it's only for the new licenses.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
we're not talking about.
Oh, no.
Because last year we did, abate half of the
Yeah.
licenses.
but
But if
I
an-
think $100 Vigil license, you shouldn't prorate. I mean, that's
No.
crazy. But if you're talking about
A liquor license.
a $1,500 liquor, I still don't think you should prorate it. But if it's what's the full one?
Is it 2,500?
That's the one that you kind of like, all right, 2,500, you prorate,
I'm okay with prorating them, so.
no, but not the $100 Vigil.
No,
You gonna
this is
prorate
ju-
that?
This just says for liquor
I
licenses.
know, but we're gonna
That's
get-
what I'm asking, if you wanted to do it for both. I mean, that was just a question I wanted to bring. Or, I mean, even if you wanted to do
I
it
don't
not
think
for
we should
these.
mess around with prorating the $100 Vigilar license.
All right.
Currently, it is prorated.
No.
No.
No,
Right,
it's not.
that's why I want to make sure we're clear.
No, there's no
Mark said he
prorating.
was for prorating, now he's saying yes, so,
Well, to what
Yes.
her comment is here.
right, so we're not going to mess around with
Good with
Vigil,
her.
which
She
is no
has.
prorating, but we're going to,
Yeah,
you're going to prorate here.
This is just for new liquor licenses.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
So this would be like a new restaurant opens,
Yep.
and we're glad to have a new restaurant in town, and are we gonna have them pay $1,500 in fees when they open in
November.
Yeah.
September? To have to pay another $1,500 in December?
Yes.
For the coming year?
Right.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm okay with prorating. It seems
Yeah.
like a reasonable thing to do.
Should be more welcoming.
Yep.
Okay. And then I just happened to notice, too, the way that this is proposed is license fees for newly issued liquor licenses may be prorated. Should that be shall? Because may implies that it.
Sure.
Okay. All right. I'll make that change.
Christine, are you okay with where we're going here?
Yes, that sounds good. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you.
Okay. The next change that was added that I wanted to also run by the board is 106, the cessation of operations. Christina mentioned that this usually doesn't happen at all. That usually when somebody closes, the only time we hear about it, or she hears about it, is when it comes time for liquor license renewal. I guess, question, do we need it? And I had suggested changing it to not more than 30 days, but what are your thoughts on that? Christina, you can chime in too if you have thoughts on the cessation of operations.
Sure. I think if I would prefer that they do let me know when they close, so that I'm not chasing them down trying to get all of their renewal documents in. But as you said, it doesn't happen very often. I most often find out on Facebook that a restaurant has closed.
I mean, I say you leave it in. And I only say that because we've seen stuff happen in the last couple of years and never thought would happen, with restaurants and things were closed for, some did close up for 30 days and we had an emergency order in place, so I mean, allowed it, but you don't know what, if there's no harm and no foul, then you leave it, but
I'm
I
fine
agree with
with
you,
it.
for more than 30 days, maybe it should say not more than 30 days? Or is that what you were saying? Or you
No,
want
they
for more than 30 days?
added if it's gonna close for more than 30 days.
Okay, yeah, but then Pat said, but did you say something different?
No.
Okay, all right, yeah, then I'm fine with that.
Okay.
All right, good. And then down to 109, the discrimination, the different classes. I guess we had a question about how to list, how to describe the people that you have to be allowed into establishments.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, you okay the way that's worded?
Yeah,
I mean, are there any non-protected classes that we still may want to include in that list? I guess might be the question.
You could list age, seeing as it's so,
Well, you gotta,
it's as obvious as everything else that's there. I'd probably put that in there.
And I couldn't get in.
Too young.
I mean, I guess the question
Except
might be.
if you're underage, it could be a
Yeah,
problem.
right, exactly.
Well, that's different. Discrimination is different than the law.
I mean, I guess,
would they be part of other protected classes?
well, I don't think it's legally protected, right?
No.
Discrimination is discrimination.
I think it is, but, I just said, do you want to list it?
Mhm.
Take that off the,
Well, I mean, I think Christina had kind of thought maybe we could come up with some general word to be more inclusive and not specify,
That
race,
would-
color, creed, but I
that
don't,
would be better.
I don't know do you have any thoughts on what that wording would be?
I used to
Could
be
we
more
get-
up on the protected class list.
Can
than
we
I
get
am
some,
today.
Paul, could we get some input from Jeannie or
Sure.
on what that language should be?
Yeah, the reason I brought up
Which I
age is
should
because
know.
you did mention so many. That one, to me, just hit me like as an omission of
Get
the
close to
obvious
home.
things that you might put in there.
get close to home.
No, it's just, why isn't that there?
Right.
All right, so we'll
What's
follow
next?
up.
What's next, Pat?
Follow up on that. The next one, 116, that I did highlight. Christina had mentioned, and Christina, why don't you explain this on 116, which is the refuse removal about the Board of Health and not being. Go ahead.
Yes, this issue has come up recently with the Board of Health, and Town Council had advised the Board of Health that they could not enforce the bylaw with that 7 a.m. Time constraint because something about a state regulation trumping the local regulation. I've not been privy to the exact reasoning behind that. I think it would be a question for Town Council whether or not the board would have another avenue of enforcement as a contingency of licensing or through licensing regulations or not. So I don't know whether or not we are currently able to enforce that as it is written.
So that, is town council going to review this then?
I mean, I guess we could have them review it, or we could just remove it and just follow whatever the state regulation is. That's an option, right, Christina?
Just say refuse removal shall be in accordance with state regulations? Or in compliance, or not
Or
even
just
have it at
just
all?
keep the second paragraph.
I don't know what the state regulation is.
Oh, so the second paragraph, the Board of Health would be complying with whatever that is, would enforce compliance with that, right?
Right, because they're the
That's
ones
why
that-
you're saying just delete the first paragraph and leave it with the second? That'd
Yeah,
work
it
too.
would need a little bit of reworking, but we could do that.
I'm okay with that.
Although that also does reference, regulations and conditions of the Board of Health. I mean, we could reference just state regulations.
Yeah,
Sounds like that's the one you
and
have an issue with, so.
we could just ask the Board of Health to tell us what they'd like it to say.
Although they might like it to say something like Christina said, that it's not enforceable.
Okay.
Could you, that last sentence, break it off and say, any rules or regulations of the Chelmsford Board of Health which conflict, and then any regulations of the state of Massachusetts that it conflicts with will supersede these rules.
Yeah, I
You
guess we
just
could
put-
do that.
And make it another paragraph
Yeah.
that Board of Health and state supersede anything in this section.
Yeah, okay,
I like that.
all right. Just really a terminology one on 118, I changed the word stating exit as required by the building department instead of requested. I think required is a stronger term, and I think it should be required and not just requested. 119 is a couple of things, but they're just changing the wording so that it's more inclusive, I guess you could say, and more accurate. The next one I had questions on is 120, the coin-operated automatic amusement machines. And I think Christina said there's only one restaurant that has that. Is it Papagino's? Is that what you said?
Yes, Papagino's has one. It's, I don't know how enforced, this is sort of comes from an old state regulations where the police used to inspect them, which doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, but ironically, there are other establishments, facilities that have them too, like Walmart.
Like Walmart. That's what I was thinking.
yeah.
Walmart has a restaurant in there.
So I don't know why we would have it here and not have it on those others. I mean, does the police do any checking on the coin-operated amusement machines at
I
Walmart?
think you're about to crack up, Paul.
It's an antiquated
It is.
statute. I mean, let's call it what it is.
I mean, we could take it out completely because it does seem to be kind of meaningless.
I'm fine with that.
That would
You're
be
putting your
fine.
money in those here, sucker, anyways.
Move everything up.
All right.
I've spent a lot of time there. They don't
More
work.
pinball for you, Julie.
Okay. 2.02 was just a clarification, adding wording there. 2.09 is training for managers and employees. The way that it was before, only the manager of a restaurant needed to have the tips training. Everybody else could just have what they considered in-house training, which, there was no specification as to what was going to be in that training. So the suggestion was that everybody be required to have tip certification if they're gonna be dealing with alcohol. It's so easy to get tip certified these days. So that's why that suggestion was made there. So that basically 2.09 and 210 have to do with training, changing
How does it
training.
work for people, establishments that are already out there that wouldn't be complying with this?
We would have to put an effective as-of date.
Because it says here 30 days of employment. So
Right.
we'd have to do something for
Yeah, I mean, we could,
30 days after it goes in effect, or how are we going to deal with that?
probably we should give them at least 30 days. I mean, we could say January 1st, but that might be a little too quick. But, I don't know, that's a good point.
Yeah, that's the only one I'm thinking was, how are you going to do that?
So first of all, I mean, is everybody okay with
Yeah,
requiring the
Yeah.
tip
I
certification?
think it was good.
Yeah, because, we don't know, well, you're supposed to be able to know what's in the, so-called on-site training, but it could be pretty meaningless.
How will this get communicated out to all those folks too?
Well, the new licenses get this.
No, I get that, but again, the people that are already established.
We would have to do that in
Yeah.
some form.
Send
I
them
know
an
Christina
update.
has email addresses for everybody, right, so.
We have to issue the new
I
license.
have licensing contact information for every licensee, so I do a lot of blast emails, so that wouldn't be too tough to communicate.
So this theoretically would go into place, become effective
When we approve it.
tonight?
Well,
No, she's got
no.
more work to do.
Okay, so it'll be a bit.
Well, I mean, we could probably approve it at our next, well, maybe not our next meeting, but sometime in December.
So we're going to have to give them some time. So
And
we
then-
should just think about what that time period
Yeah.
should be.
Yeah, if it's,
and
I
How to
mean,
communicate it.
yeah, and I don't think it needs to be a lot, not a year, maybe 60 days or
Yeah.
something like
With
that.
holidays and it's new.
Okay, all right. And then over to people that are waiting for service.
Yep.
How many drinks they're allowed to have. I don't know if there's any thoughts on that. The wording has just kind of been changed a little bit to make more sense.
The waiting lines have gone up, so maybe 3. No, 2's fine.
I was just going to call it the Lefebvre rule, but,
Yeah, there you go. And then 3.05 is for as consumption on the premises. They can't bring anything in except in Section 4, which is carry-in. The reason 3.07 is highlighted is because there's a
Yeah.
potential referendum to be on the state ballot next year, which may reinstitute happy hour, and which would,
Allow them to sell at a discount?
yeah.
Thank God.
I'm not sure if that would allow the town to have stricter,
We'll have to wait and see how it
okay, so,
unfolds.
Could you throw another line there unless superseded by mass statute, so we won't have to revisit it? Or you want to wait?
yeah, we could do that. Yeah,
but happy hour doesn't always mean it's going to be below cost.
Right.
That's the whole thing. And I know that there's a lot of legislation out there, and there's been a lot of court cases about selling under cost. So I'm not sure that they're going to go there, but,
Oh, we can wait then.
yeah, I mean, that's
You can
usually,
give discounted food.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's usually
yeah.
what happy
Well, that's how
hour
they've
is.
been doing it, yeah.
Yeah,
Bucket shuck.
yeah.
And
So,
they ruined it in
anyway.
the 80s.
You're losing control of the folks here, Pat.
Apparently, yeah.
We'll focus.
By whom? So you want to just leave it as is for now, and if that happens, we can revisit
Yep.
it based
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
what happy hour. And then 3.08, it kind of goes in circles if you read this. Individuals standing at a bar due to a lack of available seats may be served by a wait person only, but in cases where there's no wait person available, bus service will be allowed. I don't know, I guess it could be written better or I don't know, is there a difference between a wait person serving you a drink versus a bartender?
Yes.
They're tip certified, it isn't, but
so you,
So I'll give you an example. I was in one of the Chelmsford restaurants last weekend, and because they couldn't find staff, what they did at the head of the bar is they took away the chairs, and they made it so that people were waiting could approach the bar and order at the bar and then step away from the bar, as opposed to before when they had wait staff and you were standing waiting, they'd come over and say, "Can I get you a drink?" And then they'd run out, get your drink, and bring it to you. So I think in this case, they don't have enough people because staff is so tight right now that they can open up a section of bar and have you approach the bar, order a drink, keep a tab open, step away, drink, and come back and get another drink.
so we want to limit that. I mean, and limit it in the way it's described here.
Well, they're just saying 2 drinks either way.
Well, no, I'm not, I'm in 3.08, it doesn't have any limit there.
Yeah, no more than 2 alcoholic or wine or malt beverage drinks shall be served to a patron.
Oh, you,
At one
okay, at the
time.
beginning of,
Yeah, bartenders may serve to those individuals seating or standing at the bar. All individuals seating or standing at the bar due to lack of available seats may be served by a wait person. In case when the wait persons are not available, bar service will be allowed. That's exactly what they've,
so what does that mean? You want to leave it in?
yeah. I
Okay,
just think you leave it just that way.
okay, with the 2 limit,
Yeah, I think it's actually
okay.
Because it dovetails with the other one. You get 2 if
Okay.
someone walks up to you and takes your order, or you can get 2 at the bar if you're ordering and walking away.
Okay.
It's limiting
all
it to
right.
2.
Okay, I guess I've never encountered this type of
Go to
situation.
more bars.
Okay, I'll try that. 3.11 is taken from our policies. Christina had pointed out that this is probably more a regulation type issue than it is a policy issue. Policies really is deciding how we're going to determine who gets a license and who's qualified. This more has to do with the actual operation, so I agreed with her on that. And-
I had 2 questions on this one.
Okay, sure.
So paragraph A says premises must be cleared of all patrons and employees other than managerial and including employees not later than 60 minutes after legal closing time. Including patrons not later than 60 minutes conflicts with the
15.
other section that says patrons have to leave within 15 minutes of actual closing.
Do you know what section that was?
Yeah, I'm looking.
C.
Let's see.
Oh, 311. B and C.
311C.
Where did you
That
go?
just talks about label, is it one we've already talked
No,
about?
it's removal of glasses within 15 minutes.
Right, it's in section 1.12. Section 1.12 says, "No patron shall be on the premises before the official opening hours nor 15 minutes after the official closing hours."
Oh,
So by including patrons in 311A for 60 minutes, it conflicts with that.
Mhm.
So I don't know what has to be reconciled, but those 2 paragraphs need to be reconciled.
Okay, any thoughts?
Well, you said it's based on a state regulation?
I don't believe that is.
Oh,
Christine,
okay.
You know, if that.
I don't know why we would leave patrons in there for 60 minutes. The purpose would be to let the people clean up and close, right?
yeah.
So I'd be inclined to keep the patrons at 15 minutes.
Okay, so just remove
Last call.
patrons from that, and
Yeah,
it'll be okay.
then I think you're done.
And again,
You have last call, and then
yeah, I mean, and what normally happens at most of these establishments,
Yeah, you could just take
as you get later on in the night, there's nobody there. They're allowed to stay open till 1, but at, 10 o'clock or whatever, they're looking and saying, there's nobody in the bar except for you. We're gonna be shutting down, you want more to drink while we clean up, they can lock the doors and you know what I mean? So even though their official closing time might be, I don't know, 11 or 12, they're closing down early because there's nobody in
Yeah.
the place, so.
Yeah, but it does
Okay.
refer to legal
Yeah,
closing
so I'm
time.
fine with the,
And then my second question was on 311B. It says, "All outside signs or lights for the licensed premise must be extinguished." And the lights one is throwing me because I'm assuming it means like a light that says the name of the building or something, or the establishment. But I don't think you want to mandate that they shut, if they have security lights or something they leave on, so people aren't breaking in through the windows or whatever at night. I don't think you want to mandate that they extinguish all their lights. So I wasn't
Okay.
sure what that was for.
Okay, I mean, this was copied directly from our policy, so yeah.
Oh,
so-
okay.
So anyway, so we that must be what we had it in the policies, but as far as lights for the licensed premises, I don't think security lights would be part of the licensed premises. I mean,
Okay.
I'd have to.
I didn't know what that meant. I just,
I
Yeah.
have another question. I mean, what kind of liability does this put on the restaurant owner to go outside 60 minutes after they close and they see a couple cars sitting there and walk over, tap on the window and say, you gotta get out of my parking lot? This is, within 60 minutes, all patrons must be clear to the premises. I mean,
Well, I believe it means the indoor premises.
Yeah.
okay.
I
Just
mean,
making
that's how
sure.
I interpret it. Maybe it should be more clear, that it's just the inside of the establishment.
I
not-
think my interpretation was the intent was to make sure everything gets closed down in an orderly fashion.
Yeah,
Okay.
Well, it references licensed premises up
Right.
top, so I think it is, to me, it's inferred.
yeah.
I think you,
Licensed premises refers to the areas approved for service of
Okay.
alcohol.
The building.
exactly.
Okay. Unless you're there, Ken, and you're being served in your car.
Touche, Pat.
Only two, though.
Okay, if we're here till 9 o'clock, you guys aren't blaming me tonight.
Section 4, just 4.03 and 4.04, whether this needs to be revisited. This is for the carry-in alcohol consumption. On the first, on 4.03, whether the attendance cannot exceed 20 patrons. I mean, that's kind of low. I mean, this is we've had this set up now for a few years. We did have one restaurant that did have carry-in alcohol, and I don't know if we've had a couple of other just one-offs that have. Christina, do you know? I mean, if we had any?
No, there's only been the one. It was Girasol at 313 Littleton Road, which is now closed. But they had a carry-in license,
Right.
and they were a small place. They had fewer than 20 seats, so it wasn't an issue.
I mean, we can leave it at 20, or we could increase it. Obviously, you wouldn't want it to be too much, because that if it gets to be 100, then they should apply for a regular license.
Or you could just, if you wanted to give flexibility, you could say attendance may be consumed cannot exceed 20 patrons unless a special license provision is granted, and they can come request it if you're worried about controlling the numbers. Because I would think if 20 people are going to be there with carry-in, it's something that's going to be planned ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it could be contingent on how many tip certified people they have there, or something
Yeah.
like that. I mean, or we could just leave it like that for now, since we haven't had a lot of use of it. But
Since nobody's asked.
But the other thing is 4.04, the alcohol amount. As Christina pointed out, a 750 milliliter bottle of wine and 24 total ounces of beer are not very equivalent as
Not
far
at
as
all.
number of drinks.
It was 4 versus 2, right?
Yeah, at least, yeah.
And it says or. I assume it should be or, not and or. So you can't take a
No,
full
you-
bottle of wine and 2 beers.
No,
It's-
no,
Yeah.
no.
So it should be a bottle of wine or 4 beers.
That's what it says.
Yeah, or 4 beers.
Well, it says, right now, it's less,
Right.
it's 2, and
But
that's
equivalent
only.
would be 48.
And that's only if you have 12-ounce beers. You know, you can't bring in 2 16-ounce beers. 'cause
Correct.
That would exceed it.
So what do you want to, do you want to go to 48 or you want to go to 64?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking you guys. Or wine, do we want to reduce the amount of wine?
How do you reduce a bottle of
I
wine?
a bottle of wine, that's the problem.
Well, they make
Drink half, cork it, and walk in?
the 375
Oh, I
liter
know,
bottle,
that's-
which nobody ever buys, but.
It's not a good bottle of wine.
All right. Any thoughts on that? From the serious side of the table?
So you're okay with the 750 milliliter bottle of wine? The question is 24 ounces of beer too low? Is that what you're asking?
Well, maybe it should be based on, I mean, it says each patron may bring up to
Right,
one
that's-
750, but maybe it should say, something per person. So, in other words, they can't bring it just for themselves. They has to be at least 2 people. So no more than 375 milliliters per person of wine, or
24 ounces.
24
24
ounces
per
of beer
person.
per person. Although, like I said.
375 and 32. That's what
So if you went out and dined alone and
Yeah,
brought a
right, you're
bottle of
kinda
wine,
stuck,
you're
yeah.
kind of stuck.
Yeah.
Basically, that's
You'd have to bring beer,
Or call Pat.
or.
I don't like beer.
Or get a small, or,
You're not going to bring the quart there.
It's like never comes up, so let's just pick one and move on.
All right, so,
I don't care.
I don't care.
I say you make it 750 and 64 ounces. Paul's like, what?
32.
No, leave it 25. I mean, I'm fine, just leave it the way it is, because I understand the logic between opening a bottle on your own.
okay, but what about for the beer? I mean, at 24, I mean,
It's per patron. You want to make it 32
well,
per patron? It's 2 beers per person.
right,
You really shouldn't be driving after 2.
Right.
Definitely.
Right. And that's
Okay.
where you had the other thing with two drinks, so.
Right.
So it
Okay.
should be consistent.
So make it 32 and be done with it.
all right, we're done. Okay, and the last one there, 4.05, the liquor liability insurance, Christina mentioned that we should have that.
That's a good catch.
And
505.
then our last
501,
section, yeah, this is for package stores. Most of it is by law changes. 5.03, the change for 3 years from 1 year. I believe Christina said that was law, correct, Christina? And
Yes, the statute is 3 years, yep,
and then the
for the
5.
regulation.
Okay, thank you. And the supervision, again, this is from our policies. It was suggested that that really belonged more in regulations than in policies about having somebody present on the area where the sales are made. Okay, all right. And one other thing that Christina had suggested, or asked if we maybe wanted to create a checklist for the police department to use when they go around and do their annual checks. Christina, how do they do it now? Do they take this document with them and make sure everything is followed?
No, I think they've sort of kind of passed on from historically what the person doing inspections prior was doing, and they have their own list they work off of. They check to make sure that the signs are on the wall that are required by the ABCC. They look for the license. They ask to see their folder with everyone's tip certification or their certification that they have some other training. But there's a lot in these regulations that we really haven't been asking them to look for. So I think it would be worth taking a look through these to see what we want them to be checking for annually.
Okay.
It's a good idea.
That's a good job.
All right, so I will make the updates we've talked about, and I'll work on a checklist too, and bring that, maybe not at our next meeting, maybe at our December 20th meeting.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Yeah, good
Well
job.
done.
Thanks, Christina.
Thanks, Christina.
you.
You guys made a great team.
Christina does all the hard work.
Didn't need to say that.
Okay.
See that, yeah.
So now we're at the discussion regarding the issuance of an additional all-alcoholic beverage package store license for off-premises consumption. Who wants to introduce this?
Yeah, we've asked Christina to stay on the call. As the board knows, that 2 meetings ago, we let the board, notified the board and the community that as a result of the census, the ABCC, which is the Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission, sent out notices to all the communities across the Commonwealth regarding the new updated quotas for licenses for on and off premises consumption. And in the case of Chelmsford, since our population exceeded 35,000 to 36,000, we crossed a threshold where the community is, through the Selectboard, is allowed to issue additional licenses, and the one of note and for discussion, and one that generated attention in the office is for additional all-alcohol off-premises retail license. And Christina can give you a quick update of the flurry of activity that she's been dealing with regarding this license. Go ahead, Christina.
Yes, I've heard from 5 different parties that are interested in submitting an application. Sometimes applicants or potential new businesses are a little bit circumspect on the phone and don't want to necessarily say who they are or where they're looking. So I don't know all of their plans. One of them has already submitted an application. I have not advertised the public hearing and scheduled the hearing yet. pending the outcome of tonight's discussion. Another one, I've spoken several times with the attorney, and their application is imminent. The other three parties, I'm not certain how serious they were, if they are still working on location, or if their applications are forthcoming. I will note, though, if the board were to make a decision based on setting a date and saying perhaps that you would entertain applications all at once at a certain date, there is a 10-day advertising requirement and a butter notification requirement. So whatever the date is of the meeting, it has to be in the newspaper 2 Fridays prior. And then there's typically up to a week lead time to get the ad placed in the paper. So if the board does entertain the possibility of choosing a date to look at all applications at once, that date would have to take all of that into consideration. It can't be the next meeting.
So again, we're just looking for direction how we want to handle it. I mean, the board's under no obligation to issue any additional licenses, but the fact that there's one there, as you can see, she's getting inquiries, and we just wanted, as I mentioned at the last meeting, how do we want to handle this? It didn't make sense to us to just be first come, first served, because what happens, and Christine's already found this out, is you get incomplete submitted application because somebody's rushing to get it in. So it's up to the board in terms of, we're looking to see how do you want us to handle applications, again, from a spectrum of the board has no intent to issue any additional licenses to, as she noted, the board will consider all license applications that are submitted by a date certain to, the other step would be we'll take them as they come.
So if the board makes a statement, we're not interested in any additional licenses, but then 2 weeks from now, someone comes forward and says, well, I'd like to apply for a liquor license. Can they do that? I mean, come in and apply, and we say, well, our policy is, but can we still entertain if we see,
Sure,
well, this is an interesting location, it's way over on the Westford line, there's no liquor stores near it.
You reserve the right to change your mind, which you can't act as arbitrary and capricious, because if, in other words, if you came in on a Wednesday and said, hey, I want a license, and, and the board says, yeah, okay, we're denying it for X reason, and then 3 weeks later, another one comes in that's very similar, you're going to get an appeal to the ABCC. And again, they're like most state agencies, they're reluctant to get involved in a local matter unless there's, some arbitrariness or capricious, or just something that just doesn't, warrants their intervention. But, I've been in the ABCC with a previous chair of the board, and that was when the case where the town had sought to deny a license because of licenses in an adjoining community. And they came out there and said, nope, you can't consider licenses in an adjoining community. It's the only licenses in your community. But then beyond that, they pretty much said, hey, look, we're reluctant to enter into local affairs unless it's something that.
So if on this map, if we had pulled Westford and right there, there's a liquor store, we can't consider that?
No.
Yeah.
That was one of the reasons that was granted, provided, and voted at a previous application.
I was kind of hoping we could hold off on that, Paul. To be honest with you, I think we're kind of jumping the gun. That's only my opinion. I don't know what the rest of you people think, but
What do you mean by hold off, George?
we don't have to grant that license. I mean, let's take a look at really what's going on in town. And, just because we get the permit for it, now we take 8 applications, you're gonna first of all, you're gonna get 7 enemies if you even give it out, number one. Number two, I thought that the board controlled it, but, and I'm not being wise.
No, the board does control it. We just want to know what to tell people, George.
And I'm only one, but I think we should hold off, personally.
So basically, we should issue like a moratorium on new licenses,
No.
we have the 7 that we've issued.
Take a good look at what we have and if we're servicing the town. I don't know about that, what other people think, but that's how I feel.
I have an education question. I don't, so I understand we have a limited number of liquor licenses. And we probably have an unlimited number of Vigil licenses, right? But I'm trying to understand in my head, how is saying we're going to limit the number of licenses or liquor establishments in town different than saying, we don't limit the number of Mexican restaurants or the number of hair salons, right? Why is this, I just don't
Any
understand historically what,
Well, because we're also granted a set number of liquor licenses. We're not
Okay.
granted a set number of Vigil licenses.
yeah.
So it infers a different sort of,
So if you're not going to grant a license, then are you going to say under what conditions you would? Like, are you targeting a geographic area? Are you, I mean, to some extent, are you interfering with free enterprise? I just
Well, that was
just
my
don't
first thought.
understand. I
There's,
don't know what gives us, other than we don't want to issue the license,
There were many
gives
others,
us the,
excuse me, I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
No, there's many other types of licenses that we've never issued in this town.
Because people don't ask for them, or because we
Well, they've
decided
asked for
we're
them, we
not going to
just
ask?
never-
you say many, what other licenses?
Beer and wine licenses?
One.
Yeah.
No.
That's the only other, what other license do we need?
Oh, that's the only one, but we've done it more
Many
than
of them,
once.
I mean, many.
Oh, yeah, we've had many applications for beer and wine.
And we could probably give out, I don't know, how many of those could we give?
Same amount. right?
it's on your
Hey,
quota.
whatever.
Yeah, it's on the sheet.
It's on, yeah, for.
And we do zero.
Off premises wine, you could grant 8, and right now, there's 0 issued.
And it's been that way for years. I just
But
think
that
we're
was-
jumping the gun, because we got one, we don't, we can look, we don't want to hurt anybody that's in business and supported us. I know they've had a decent year.
Virginia, I was waiting to see what answers you would get, but my understanding of the reason for this, you can give out tons of restaurant licenses, people aren't gonna go out and eat themselves to death. But if you give out a lot of liquor store licenses, you're gonna have, if a liquor store is not doing well, and their sales aren't there, they're gonna start selling to underage kids, they're gonna start, whatever, and you run into problems with the liquor stores get run down, they start serving the underage, and now you gotta start to police it.
Okay.
And that's the theory behind.
So that would,
You want the liquor stores to stay healthy so that they don't start falling into trouble.
bad habits.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, the difference between on-premises and off-premises. On-premises, there has been an issue. In fact, we got a special act of the legislature to grant additional on-premises
Right.
license because we were at the quota because
remember that.
the 129. Off-premises has been a different animal, and the most notable one was the Chelmsford Premium Meats, the meat house over by the highway. That was the most recent flashpoint where they wanted a license to remain in business, and they would deny that license, and shortly thereafter, they left town. And then it was noted at the time the town did not issue wine and malt liquor or beer and wine licenses. And the one that had been issued on Chelmsford Street, once that was sort of given up, they've never issued any since. That was the one by the mall.
And Paul, the on-premises, we can petition to get more. Is this the?
Well, you can petition to get more of these too if you want, but you need a special act of the
I'm not saying
legislature.
we want to,
yeah.
I just wanted to understand.
Right.
Okay, so this one they just gave to us because the census count went up.
Exactly, because the statute provides so many licenses based upon your population.
And we did get more restaurants.
And we got more license as a result of the population growth as well.
But the license based on population goes back to that argument that you should only have a liquor store towards so many draws so that the liquor store, has the ability to
And we
stay in
just
business and
crawled
run
over the line.
healthy. And we just got over the line.
And there's been, the one in North Chelmsford was in bankruptcy for 3 years, and then somebody bought out of bankruptcy, and he put another location, and that location wasn't so successful. Now they sold that to
Right.
another fellow who they're gonna transfer that location to, next to the,
Yeah, and not only that,
Even down the
that
road, it's
location, North
expanding.
Chelmsford, is gonna be
Yeah.
ginormous, not a word, enormous. It's gonna be quite large.
Yeah.
yeah, and he's gonna spend I don't even know who the person is. He came in front of us for a transfer, so the transfer.
Yeah.
How many square feet is that building?
Couple
For
$1 million,
to
and
transfer
they're gonna
the
get
the
that
current
piece.
He's
location.
been in front of the planning board.
Right,
Yeah.
but he
Princeton
hasn't come to us to transfer his location.
No,
Right.
Not yet.
not yet.
No, he came in front of us to buy it.
Correct.
But that's gonna be, you're infusing now quite a large liquor store into the whole mix on top
It's a whole
of.
section of town,
Yeah.
and that's only one license, and it has had trouble making it, so this is all I'm trying to
So
say.
to answer your question, it doesn't regulate the size of the store, it regulates the number of stores.
Understood. Thank you.
And not to, I'm probably pushing the envelope on this, but are we allowed to ask if any of the potential applicants were grocery stores?
No,
Not
they
to my
were not. No, I get regular inquiries about those wine and malt, the beer and wine package store licenses. But I always notify people of the select board policy not to issue package store licenses to mixed use establishments. So there's quite a lot of expense, effort and time involved in putting together and submitting an application. So once they're notified of that policy, they don't usually move forward. The ones who have expressed interest would be purely package stores.
I mean, I think I'd lean with George. Let's wait until we see this other large liquor store get open and see what happens there, and then we consider issuing another license, because you don't want to flood the market with, tons of new alcohol distribution.
And there's a couple other smaller ones in town that I think are maybe not doing so well, but I don't have access to their records or anything, but the word is that they're not doing real well. And I don't know, we get letters from other people. I don't know if I don't even know the people where one of the establishments sent a letter how if that happens, they could probably go out of business. Did you get? I don't know. I don't even know who the people are, honestly. Never,
I didn't get it, so.
I think it was in the Westlands or something. It is what it is. That's just my opinion for what it's worth. Anybody else has their own?
Yeah, mine would be not to issue it. I think we have adequate coverage.
Pat?
I would agree. I mean, I think right now, as George said, I mean, maybe at some time in the future, we might revisit it, but for the near future anyway, I would say, stay where we are.
I just think you have a lot of changes going on with the package stores in town. And so let's let the dust settle with the new one that's coming online, and then we can.
We don't know there's
revisit.
going to be a new one. I mean, you keep saying that. They haven't come before us. We could turn that down.
The transfer.
That's what I
Yeah.
mean. I mean, we don't have to let them move a quarter mile down the street,
True.
so.
I believe their intent to do that was in the other application.
It
But
was.
we didn't vote that.
Do you need a vote or just a consensus here that we're going to hold?
Are you going to put a time limit of like, say,
I'm
6
okay with,
moratorium for a certain amount of time?
I mean, I think
And then
that
we'll take it
makes,
up again?
if we're going to discuss it again, I think it'd be good to have some kind of moratorium.
6
whether-
months, 8
six-
months, something like that,
6
Is that
months,
binding a
or-
future board?
a year?
Is that binding a future board? No, they can always revoke it. I mean, I think it's binding this board, maybe. Or it's helping Christina, I guess you could
Yeah.
say, talk to these people that
I
harass
think
her.
it'd be better if we did put a time frame on it, though.
Yeah,
Just
no,
so
I
you know.
agree.
Yeah.
I think that makes more sense.
I think we revisit it next year at the same time we do the licenses again.
so
It's fine with
you're
me.
talking a year?
Yeah.
Fine
You
with me.
okay with that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you get what you need, Christina?
You didn't take a vote.
Yes, I can communicate that to
You want an
the
official
interested
vote?
parties.
It would be helpful if it were a vote.
All right,
and
so
that
I'll
way
make a
we-
motion that we put a one-year moratorium on the new liquor license that the state has given us.
I'll second the motion.
To be revisited, can we just say in November 2022?
During the
1 year,
renewal process.
November 22, during the license renewal process?
Yes,
Okay.
because I don't know what the date is. Any further, did you second?
I did.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Okay, that brings us to the library trustees letter. I don't know if Paul or Pat has more information on this. I don't have anything other than what's in the letter. And my response was that I can't make a unilateral decision or give you unilateral feedback without bringing this before the board. So Paul, do you have any more
Yeah,
background you can share on this one?
What's happened is, in the last month, the property at 4 Bartlett Street has appeared on multiple listing service for sale, and I think that generated discussion. In terms of what may happen to that property. The interest for the town is it adjoins the town-owned property of the Adams Library, the Chelmsford Public Library. And so hence you have a request from the library trustees saying, there's some tremendous possibilities that could be done if that land were to be acquired, and obviously modified, because right now it's vacant as well as a residential dwelling, multi-unit dwelling. So I think that's what's going on here with the trustees in terms of they're expressing interest in the property in the center, as we know from the fact that it's vacant. There's the 4 Bartlett Street, and then at the end of the triangle is the Global, property owned by Global, which was, also the site of the service station, portion of the service station that's been dormant as well.
Are they the owner, Paul? Excuse me.
Global Company owns the
Does it-
end piece.
Just the whole end, the little angle piece?
Yeah, just and then
They own the
the
whole thing,
remainder.
not
the
half
white-
and half, like-
No, it's not evenly distributed. And then the White House and then into is still privately owned. So that's why the trustees are, and we've come across this in the past, when the discussions were about parking in the center. And so I think the question is there's 2 parcels in the center that are vacant that have considerations for parking and other use, and I don't think the board and the community can make an informed decision until more information develops on everything out there, quite frankly.
Yeah, because, from a consideration standpoint, the White House isn't in the district.
Right.
But it is, I would consider it historical significance.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of the
building was
first
built-
houses for Chelmsford,
Built in
right?
1600s, yeah.
Yeah, 1630s,
30-something.
yeah. It was the first house built in Chelmsford, so,
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to see it go to the library and have them do something. I know these are just conceptual, but
Right.
I'd want to see the house stay. I don't know what the library can do.
But as you know, in the town, if a private entity bought it, they could file
I
demolition
know.
delay, and then 2 years, it's gone.
Right.
Because we can't prohibit demolition. You're right, I don't think the library would be interested in acquiring it for being a landlord for multi-unit property. They may be for some other use of the interior of such a structure, perhaps. I don't know.
But, yeah, okay.
In these drawings.
Right.
What?
No, these are just examples of different.
So I know, but
yeah.
it looks like by example,
Yeah, everything they showed you was an open
here
park.
Outside,
they're
yeah.
thinking about keeping it.
Yeah, it was like, I'm looking at this going, this are all open parks, there's no building in any of these.
I'm not necessarily saying we should. I
Right.
don't know,
Not necessarily
They're
saying we
saying
should.
it could be a
Whether we should
trans,
keep it or not. I mean, we got rid of the other, I forget the name of it now, that got moved out of there.
It was the pink house.
Pink House.
Yeah. We moved that out of there. I don't know what significance that may have had or didn't at the time.
Depends on one's
Big.
perspective.
There was a big issue on that.
Yeah.
I guess the fundamental question is really, do we want Paul to go look at evaluation of those properties? And for me, is there an action we want to take here? And to some of the other points that were made, if something has changed and the town were to try to go propose acquisition of those properties, I think that there's a larger discussion that needs to be had that includes the library, the historical commission, and the Center Village Committee, and maybe others. But I
The other thing,
don't,
too, is-
I don't think that if we decide to at least get more data or investigate doing this, that there's a single use that's a done deal without some discussion of the other stakeholders and the other committees.
And I don't know if it's possible, but I'd almost want it, if we were gonna consider this, that you gotta get both owners to agree. You gotta get the oil company to agree to sell the front portion, and you gotta get the White House to agree to sell the White House, and you want it to all go as one, and, I know they've been in a standoff. The White House says, I want this amount, and
Right.
the oil company says, I want this amount, and then they say, all right, well, what about we switch it? Then then the values go the other way, and they just have gone nowhere. So maybe the way to break the stalemate is you have the town say, we're interested in all of it, and none of it goes forward unless we get a P&S from everybody, but.
So they'd be
I don't know if
looking for
that's doable.
CPC money for that, to buy that?
Yeah, I don't think they've gotten to that step of how they would fund an acquisition, but,
I think the town should be interested.
okay. And we
Yes.
can look into it
Do
if
we
we're looking
want,
into
so
it.
we want to at least take a step to try to get more information?
Yes.
Are we in agreement with
I do,
that?
yeah.
I think you need to assess the parties that are on the town side that are interested, and then gauge the other 2 parties to see if they're interested. I'm kind of scratching my head on the sale of the White House. He's, when you read it, he's not letting anybody in. you know, you just put a price tag on it, there's really not a lot of pictures, you don't know what's going on inside, and it's almost like you put the price out there to let the oil company know what he wants for it. That's what I had suspected.
Right,
He's trolling.
right. Okay. Like I said, there's no
Make
harm
them
in,
both feel bad that the town wants it, and they really should help their town.
well, the town can take it if the town really, no, I mean, but then that would basically be on the, taking would be on its appraised value. If it got to that extreme, which we know the town has not gone into those waters, right?
Yeah.
Yet, right. Right. Okay. All right, so we'll,
You have what
It's
you
such
need,
a key-
Paul?
yeah, we'll
Hold this house.
try to gather some
And
information.
I want to also just thank the trustees for bringing it to our attention, too.
And it looks it.
Thank you.
Okay, we have meeting minutes. We can go one by one, or I know I have comments on a couple of them.
Do you want to start with the July 26th? Do
Sure.
you have comments on that one?
Do you want to just go one by one?
Do you want me to make the motion,
Or do you want to do comments and then approve them all at once?
I'd rather do one by one and do
Okay.
your comments as we get to them. rather
Okay,
than-
that's fine, Pat.
So July 7th?
No,
July 26th?
go ahead, you make a motion and then we'll have discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve the Select Board minutes from July 26th, 2021.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
I'll make a motion to approve the Select Board meeting minutes from August 9th, 2021.
I'll second the motion.
Motion in a second, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
I'll make
5-0.
a motion to approve the September 13th, 2021 Select Board meeting minutes.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, this is one where I have a comment. So, under public service announcements, the statement that says Chair Timmons announced that the Indigenous People Award proclamation will be deferred really should be deleted because it belongs where it is under the topic of review Indigenous Peoples' Day proclamation. It was not part of the public service announcements, and that statement is redundant. So that's my amendment to that one.
You want it moved where?
I want to delete it under public service announcements. And it just stays where it is under review Indigenous Peoples' Day proclamation, a couple topics below.
Okay. Yes, that, if I remember, that's how that went.
You already sent that in?
No, we do it here, and then Christina will put it in after we approve them as amended.
They haven't been approved yet, right?
We're doing it tonight.
No, right. But she sends them out in advance for people to give
packet.
them comments. And so did she see your comments?
We don't
Otherwise-
give,
we-
we do
we
the
comment
comments
now.
here.
Okay. well,
That's-
no.
Well, no, he's right. I mean,
That's not what I
Christina
do.
sends us.
Oh, I did put that in my
Oh, okay,
comments.
so she's got it.
It just got overlooked.
Okay, got
Oh,
it.
okay. Thank you. That's what I was,
My I wasn't
it's
sure.
not that late, so
All
no
right.
excuses.
I really want to set a record and be done by 8.
Okay,
we
so it
good?
just got overlooked. Okay, I get you.
See a motion, a second?
I need a motion to approve. Did you make a
amended.
Oh,
motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the September 13th Select Board meeting minutes as amended.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll make a motion to approve the September 20th, 2021 Select Board regular session meeting minutes.
I'll second.
I had a comment on this one, too. It didn't get put in. There was just an error on page 1. The header above National Grid and Verizon poll petition says licenses. That was not a license. It should say public hearing. So my amendment is to change licenses to public hearing on that header.
Anything else?
Hmm?
Is that it?
That's it.
So I'll make a motion to approve the September 20, 2021 Select Board regular meeting minutes as amended.
I'll I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's 5-0.
I'll make a motion to approve the September 27th Select Board regular session meeting minutes.
I'll second the motion.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mark was not here at that meeting, but he can second, I guess.
What's that?
You weren't at that meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, then I won't second it.
Oh,
You second it.
I'll second it.
All right, George seconds it.
second.
Oh, that was, yep, I know which one that was.
Any discussion?
Palm Beach.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Abstentions?
Aye.
4 in favor, 1 abstention.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval for the joint Select Board and Planning Board meeting minutes from September 29th, 2021.
Do we have a second?
I'll second since Mark's.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
we have a
just- I'm
second
trying to
by
pull it back
Pat.
up.
Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Select Board regular session minutes from October 4th, 2021.
I'll second the motion.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Select Board work session minutes from November 3rd, 2021.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Okay, next is liaison reports. Pat, do you have any?
Just a couple of quick ones. Last week, several of us attended the ribbon cutting over at Dilley's Diner. They did a really good job hosting us that morning, and it was a very busy day for them. As from what I've heard, they have quite a few busy mornings. It's an excellent restaurant. I encourage everybody to try it out. So Doty's Diner on Summer Street. And the other thing I have is the football game on Thanksgiving against Billerica. Congratulations to the Chelmsford High football team for winning 16-3. I know they had to have been underdogs, and they played a really good game, so congratulations to them.
Thank you, Pat. George?
Said, thank you.
Mark?
I'm good, thank you.
Ken?
I'll start just by reiterating what Pat said. You know, the Paul Doty at Doty's Diner, you know, a lot of time you go to these ribbon cuttings and they talk about the business and everything else. I think he spent more time talking about, you know, people shopping Chelmsford and supporting the businesses in the mall there that he's in on Summer Street. So he really just was a gentleman at the whole process, and the food's great, and they did a great job. But on the same mall tomorrow at 2 o'clock, we have the ribbon cutting for Summer Street Grocers. So stop in, and that's at 2 o'clock, and you can see that. And then again, don't forget the tree lightings this weekend, Saturday and Sunday night.
Thank you, Ken. I just have a reminder that the Capital Planning Committee is meeting this Thursday. And again, are they meeting this Thursday?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and again on this Thursday, December 9th, next week. Press questions, I don't see any press in this room or the Zoom room. So it is 7:58 PM, and I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Thank you, everyone.